Find out what the Institute for Veteran and Military Families at Syracuse University can do for you in your entrepreneurial journey. Coming up next on Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com, or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. The Institute for Veteran and Military Families is committed to advancing the post-service lives of America's service members, veterans, and their families. Supported by a world-class advisory board and public and private partners, their professional staff delivers unique and innovative programs in career, vocations, and entrepreneurship education and training to post-9/11 veterans and active duty military spouses, as well as tailored programs to veterans of all eras. The IVMF also provides actionable and national impacting research, policy analysis, and program evaluation, and works with communities and nonprofits across the nation to enhance service delivery for the 22.5 million veterans throughout the United States and their families. Okay, we're here with Misty Stutsman and Rosie Maury from IVMF, which is the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, which is a program of Syracuse University. So, Misty, take us back a little bit and give us your background and how you arrived at the entrepreneurship program in IVMF at Syracuse University.
Of course. So as we discussed kind of in our pre-discussion, I was actually a master's student at Oklahoma State University when their new entrepreneurship director came in and was deciding how to set up new educational programs as well as boot camp type programs for veterans at the university. And with that work, I started designing curriculum and just delivery models for underserved markets. So that was women, rural, and veteran. From there, I really found our passion working with the vets in our Veterans Entrepreneurship Program, as well as our master's program that we had that was more tooled for the veteran group. And about a year and a half ago, I made the jump up to the Institute for Veteran and Military Families, considering I have the penchant, as we discussed, for small college towns that start with S and like the color orange, to take over their Center of Excellence for Veteran Entrepreneurship to really dive in and start identifying what good looks like. So 18 months later, and a brutal winter, I am still up here just kind of paving the way for the next generation of entrepreneurship programs. So that's what brought me here.
That's awesome. Yeah. And of course, like we were talking before I hit the record button, and turns out I was asking Misty, I was trying to remember Dr. Robert Morris's name, who was running the entrepreneurship program at Oklahoma State when I was going there getting my master's in entrepreneurship. And all of a sudden we realized, wait a minute, we know each other. Because I remember working with Misty because you were the business plan competition that I entered. Yep. As I was going through the coursework down there. You were kind of running that whole competition, and we talked on the phone many times. And then I'm not bragging, but I did place third in the business plan competition. I was the old guy out of 90 teams. And I placed third, so I was pretty proud of that. But and that was for when I started up the nonprofit Speaking of Heroes, for getting our heroes to tell their story. So turns out several months later, Misty contacted me and said, "Hey, you think you can provide a motivational, inspirational veteran speaker for our veteran entrepreneurship boot camp that Oklahoma State was getting ready to have again?" And so I brought in Justin Constantine. Justin Constantine's also been on the show, and he's quite the entrepreneur, and he's become a very successful speaker. He was the Marine that was shot in the back of the head by a sniper in Iraq. Very inspirational, motivating story. And so now, here Misty and I are talking about IVMF up at Syracuse University, and it turns out we know each other and we've crossed the same paths previously. So if you stay in this veteran entrepreneurship game long enough, you start meeting some of the same people, and everything comes back around again. So it's great to talk to you again, and great to have you on the show. We had no idea that this was going to happen, so it's pretty awesome. All right, Rosie.
Yeah.
Rosie Maury.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us how you got into this whole venture.
Well, I mean, like Misty, I did the reverse migration. I'm from the South, actually from San Antonio, Texas. I'm not a veteran, but I've just been in San Antonio. You did a lot of, my area is more research. So I did a lot of research with military installations, job performance, occupational analysis, behavioral type research. And then I guess like military spouses, I followed my husband, to the north, and he came to Syracuse, where there was this Institute for Veterans and Military Families. And at the time they were looking for a director of research. So I applied and I joined, and I've been here since its inception, really. I don't do entrepreneurship programming. Again, I'm the director of applied research. So my area is more in research. I think you had a past person talking about some of our research.
Yes, Debbie Bradford.
We did a lot of variety. We did a whole research series on workforce readiness and what that means, both for the employer as well as for the veteran or the transitioning service member. We've done some series of research on military spouses and their employment trajectories, and so forth and so on. So we do a lot of research on employment, education, and recently, and Misty will talk a little bit later about it, we're going into the entrepreneurship research area. So, yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Okay, so Rosie, give us a big picture view, kind of cage our gyros here on what the Institute for Veterans and Military Families is all about.
Well, before I go into the institute, because I'm going to let Misty take on that one, I do want to talk about veteran entrepreneurs in general. We actually recently released a report, the state of veteran entrepreneurship, that talks about what we know about them. And we know from research that veterans are more likely to own a business compared to non-veterans. And we also know that veterans out-earn their non-veteran counterparts, if you will. We know that veteran entrepreneurships vary by age and length of service. And some veterans enter entrepreneurship because of limited other employment options. Currently, and this is with the latest data, there are currently 2.5 million majority veteran-owned businesses in the U.S., which represents about 9% of all businesses. And those businesses generate nearly $1 trillion in cash receipts and employ almost 6 million people. So I'll let Misty talk about IVMF and the entrepreneurship program, but I wanted to kind of set the stage about veteran entrepreneurship just very broadly.
Yeah. So, and building off of that, what Rosie just said is basically the Institute story starts 10 years ago. Dr. Mike Haney, Air Force veteran, was teaching at the academy, came over to Syracuse University and was teaching entrepreneurship here, and really kind of said, as a summer project, he realized that the vets that are coming out of service needed an opportunity to craft their own vocation due to disabilities, due to other challenges that they were facing. So as a summer project, he thought he was going to start this little boot camp called the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans. And in 2007, that's exactly what he did. And he had 17 service-disabled vets that came in. Well, the program blew up overnight. The next summer, UCLA, Florida State University, and Texas A&M joined the consortium and ran their own programs for vets. And then right after that, 4 more universities jumped on, and it kind of blew up overnight. So you had Florida State University, University of California at Los Angeles, Texas A&M. And then right after the next summer, we had the rest of the consortium. So we have LSU, St. Joe's, University of Missouri, Cornell, UConn, and Purdue. So 10 schools later, the IVMF now looks a lot different. So about 5 years ago, we decided to formalize this movement here at Syracuse University as a challenge from our chancellor that said we will become the best university for veterans. So we started with the EBV 10 years ago, but now we have over 60,000 veterans that have been through our entrepreneurship training alone. The Institute grew up from this one program, EBV, and a couple of the motley crew like Rosie and Ray and Mike that started out. So now we have 76 employees all over the nation that serve veterans, not only in entrepreneurship, but for career prep and transition, for research, measurement, and evaluation, for our community work, and then, of course, our small business. So it's something that, is extremely important to us, but it's not just housed on the Syracuse University anymore. We actually have sites now all over the nation on different bases across the nation and different communities across the nation, trying to meet veterans where they are, whether that's entrepreneurship or any other resources that they need. And that portfolio grew from EBV, where we have now 2,000 grads. And Rosie gave you the big picture, but our grads are, kicking some tail too. We have 72% of them are starting businesses, 90% of them are still in business. They have $288 million in receipts, and they're employing on average 6 people. So we know that, what our boot camps are doing are working, and therefore we started adding portfolios. We now have Boots to Business in that portfolio. We have Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship, VOIs in that portfolio. We have the Coalition for Veteran-Owned Business, which is Fortune 500 companies coming together and saying, you know what, we're going to make sure that veterans have more opportunities in our supply chains. So that's Walmart and Lockheed and Verizon and, of course, First Data making that pledge. And then out of all of this, and this is something that Rosie hinted at, we decided, we need to do better. We can't just visit and reach all the veterans that are coming out saying they want to start entrepreneurship. So 25% about that are separating right now are saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. And we can't reach all of those. So with the Center of Excellence, what we decided was we're going to start researching veteran entrepreneurship, and we're going to start understanding what good looks like in terms of resources and programmatic delivery, and start disseminating that information to people that are on the front line, really out there trying to serve these veterans, because we're so blessed to have this measurement evaluation team that's just amazing. It's up to us to start kind of looking at other VSOs and ESOs and kind of teaching them how to deliver these programs. In addition, we're creating the first of its kind and largest resource aggregator. So we have 25,000 physical resources that veteran entrepreneurs can walk into. And we're putting in an assortable database to launch this summer, where vets will be able to look at where physically they can go to get training and resources for their business, where they can get toolkits, where they can go to events, where they can do all these things to basically move their business forward. So, we're always those that just kind of keep working and keep innovating. But that's basically the story of the IVMF and where we stand today.
Wow, that's an incredible amount of awesome data, programs, information. And I want to point that out because that's actually going back. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to dive into a little more detail on this. And one of the things, like originally why I actually started this podcast. And one of the things that I think a lot of the veterans out there are struggling with, and you touched on a little bit, is some of these places have a hard time reaching them. So when we take a quick break, and we're going to kick it off and dive deeper into that. We'll be right back. Have you joined the Veteran on the Move Facebook group? I personally invite every guest that I have on the podcast to join the group. So the Veteran on the Move Facebook group is a great way to connect with previous podcast guests. Our Facebook group will keep you in touch with other veterans that are transitioning to entrepreneurship, and you will also get great updates and free guides on the people, programs, and resources that will help you in your transition to entrepreneurship. All right, we're back with Misty Stutsman and Rosie Maury from Institute for Veterans and Military Families, part of one of the parts of Syracuse University. And before the break, Misty, we were talking about all the incredible programs that are out there and all the other universities that have joined this effort really in the last 10 years or so. One of the things I've noticed with some of my listeners when they reach out to me, and I'm kind of struggling with it myself on what kind of advice to give them. There's so many phenomenal, great programs out there, and as I was going through the Masters in Entrepreneurship program at Oklahoma State, and I was doing this Speaking of Heroes nonprofit as part of the business plan competition, I discovered so many great programs and all these resources and everything out there. And I was scratching my head when it was all over with thinking, man, I had no idea all this stuff was out there. I mean, you kind of hear about it, but when you finally get exposed to it, it's like, this is, phenomenal information. That's really the whole motivation for me starting the Veteran on the Move podcast, was I wanted to provide a conduit or help veterans navigate all of the choices they have out there when they want to get started or look for help on how to go into entrepreneurship. And so touch a little bit on, if you were talking to one particular veteran who maybe is still in, or maybe they're about to get out or they just got out, what kind of advice would you give them as far as where to start, as far as what kind of program or help that they're looking to get a business started?
Of course. So I think the most important thing is, for a veteran or any entrepreneur to understand, especially as a veteran's, separating, is that networking is key. And I know we say that a lot, but it's not networking where you're treating your business card as a piece of confetti and you're just throwing it everywhere, but it's networking with a purpose, right? So anytime that we talk to veterans, and we actually have an entire team of rock star enrollment managers here that will get on the phone with any veteran to talk them through, their goals about business startup or business ideation, and start assigning programs, not even in the IVMF, but outside of the IVMF, that they think that they might get involved in. So if I was going to say, if you're a vet and you're separating, always just look at the Boots to Business. It's a very good 30,000 foot view of this is what entrepreneurship is. And we have Reboot that's open to any era, as well as, Guard and Reserve as well. So it's something to look at there. And then what I would say is look at, where do you end up, and look at your local resources there. There's always great meetup groups and people that have been there and done that before that are going to know the network. So that might be your 1 Million Cups, your Small Business Development Center, your Veteran Business Outreach Center, or a local university might have programs as well. But start making that local network, because I think one thing that, we forget is that there's now a new tribe of entrepreneurs that are out there just as hungry, and there's great ways to kind of get plugged into them. And as long as you know what battles they've been through before you, hopefully you won't repeat the same thing. From there, always reach out. There's a bunch of consortiums now that are coming up with the kind of the boot camp version. Obviously, we have our entrepreneurship boot camp veterans for here at Syracuse University and the other 10 schools I mentioned. And that does, have an eligibility requirement. But there's other great consortiums too. The Veteran Entrepreneurship Program, the Veteran Entrepreneurship Jumpstart Program at St. Joe's. And those programs, by the time you take in all three of them, actually cover every, type of it. So era of service, disability, anything like that. And the whole point is that if you get in touch with someone like the IVMF and our enrollment coordinators here, they'll actually talk to the vet and see where their eligibility is and what program might fit them and where they are in terms of kind of their arc. If they're still thinking about it, a Boots to Business, a Reboot, or Bunker in a Box is a great way to start, to kind of just take in the information and figure out what entrepreneurship is. And when you're ready to jump in, getting into those kind of residency programs like the EBV is a fantastic place, because again, I say every day, we bring in over 30 to 50 speakers for an EBV. And what they say is, life-changing and very important. But it's the other 30 people sitting in the room, those other veterans, that become the battle buddies, that become the group that's really going to help keep you accountable and push you forward. And making that commitment and that commitment to networking, I think, is the most important part. And then, as I mentioned before, this summer we're launching a great tool that vets can actually get on and sort out by type and location resources that they can walk into. So there really is a program to meet a veteran where they are. So if they're ready to jump in, or if they're ready to just think about it, if they want to meet in person, if they want to do it online, there's a program. So it's reaching out to those folks, like IVMF that's been in it since the beginning, so that, we can kind of help navigate and make sure that it's linked up with the resource that's worth your time. Because even these free quote unquote resources, I always remind people that they're no cost a lot of times, because your time is still a commitment of value. So that's always something to think about.
And Rosie, from the information and data collection side of things, what do you think?
Well, I mean, actually, your story and everything is something that we're just trying to understand and really capture. So one of the things that we're doing right now is actually going to several cities in partnership with Bunker Lab and BBV and VWise, conducting focus groups. We're actually on a mission to do one of the largest qualitative research efforts focused on veteran entrepreneurship. And some of our research questions are, what are the main challenges veterans face as they start a business? What are the main resources that they need for successful business ownership? And then really just what, if, any influence does military skills and trainees have on veteran entrepreneurship success? So I guess the overall goal here is to better understand the entrepreneur's motivations, their aspirations, but also their challenges and barriers and resource needs to veteran business ownership. As I mentioned, we partnered with Bunker Labs, with EBV, VWise. We were at Austin, Jacksonville, Phoenix, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. But we're actually going to be conducting focus groups in Atlanta, Georgia on May 31st, in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 7th, in New York City, New York, June 20th, and in Los Angeles, possibly June 26th, but that is a tentative date. And if anybody is interested and they're going to be in those areas of being part of those focus groups, please email me. I'll give you my email right now. It's R as in rain, V as in Victor, Maury, my last name, Maury, or Maury Povich, at syr.edu. Again, if you're going to be in those cities and those areas and want to be part of this, really just to tell your stories, we're happy to hear from you. And you don't have to have a business. We're hearing from everybody. It's people that are interested in entrepreneurship, people that have started a business, people that are doing this as a side job even. We want to hear it all because depending on who you are, where you are, those challenges and needs differ. Depending on what industry you're in, that may differ. We've talked to cattle ranchers, we've talked to gun and ammunition manufacturers, but we've also talked to retailers. And people that do government contracting. So all sorts of businesses. And if you're not in those areas and you still want to be part of it, I actually have a website that you can just fill in the information and we will gladly give you a call and talk to you. It's vets.syr.edu/vetbizstudy. That's V as in Victor, ETBIZ. Study, STUDY, or you can just email me and I'll just send you the link as well.
That's awesome. I honestly, I've been doing this podcast. This summer will be 3 years that I've doing this podcast, and I've never had any. But I can vouch for IVMF that it's got to be the biggest and most valuable repository or resource that has to do with veteran entrepreneurship by far. I mean, there's lots of phenomenal, great programs, and some of those are at the tactical level. But IVMF is like at the theater. Oh wow, I've already forgot the military term. The strategic level. You guys have by far the most strategic level when it comes to veteran entrepreneurship that I've run across. So. Just a wealth of information. I mean, even if you just go to the IVMF website, there's just awesome studies and information. I wanted to go back, Misty. You mentioned I guess maybe what you would call the entry level program for a veteran or soon to be veteran that they would go to.
Yeah.
What's the name of that program, and how would we go directly to it as far as a website address?
So Boots to Business is the name of it. And if you just go to the SBA website or easily put in just Boots to Business, it's the first thing that comes up. So it's in partnership with the SBA. Like I said, we serve through that program about 25,000 veterans a year. We travel to bases all over the country, but also outside of the United States to, teach these programs. We've actually been on carriers as well to teach these programs to vets that are,
That's awesome.
Which was exciting, to teach these programs to vets that are separating. And it's a very good, like I said, just 2-day overview. This is what entrepreneurship is. If you've already separated and that program isn't available to you, Boots to Business Reboot is a great option, but also, and I'll say it to our friends over at the Bunker, they have a great online kind of 101. It's called Bunker in a Box. And if you just easily put in Bunker in a Box, first thing that comes up, and it's basically 12 kind of modules that you go through, and they call it missions. So it's 12 missions that you go through just over, again, what entrepreneurship is. And the great thing about them as well is in the cities that they're located, they have meetups. And so you can start meeting other like-minded veteran entrepreneurs in your area. So those are all the 101s, if you will. And then, of course, like I said, if you ever reach out to Syracuse University, to the IVMF, and it's just vets@syr.edu for email. We are here and ready to answer any questions veterans have of, what is the first step? Where should I go? And we're more than happy to jump on phone calls to just kind of discuss that. And again, help the veteran find physical and programmatic resources to meet them kind of where they're at on their journey. So those are the 101s. And then, of course, we graduate into the rest of our portfolio of programming.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. So we got maybe about 5-6 minutes left. So I wanted to touch on a couple other things. Do you, with all of your experience with helping veterans start businesses and get into entrepreneurship, do you find there's a common thread or theme that you run across, whether it's, these are the common stumbling blocks, or these are the mistakes, or these are the misconceptions that veterans have about entrepreneurship?
I think there's a few different things. I think the one great thing that you don't run into with veterans is the guys that think, hey, entrepreneurship is easy, because it's not. But it's not so hard that should be a barrier either. So I think that it's a great respect for a challenge there. I think that another big stumbling block that I see, and I know that Rosie actually has some great ones that we're pulling out of this study as well, is the limited network. You're not in this alone, just like you weren't in the service alone. There's a vast number of veterans and others that are out there committed to the cause. 10 years ago, EBV was the only program on the block, and now there's tons of programs out there just ready to help vets. So understanding that, that networking and that getting out there and that finding your battle buddy in this one as well is just as important as it was before. And I think that's a common stumbling block. And then I'm just going to say it because this is my personal soapbox. Government contracting is great. Private contracting's a lot bigger. So a lot of times the veterans try to pigeonhole themselves into government contracting. There's only a couple billion a year that, the government will spend on veteran contracts. Someone like Enterprise Holdings, so Enterprise Rent-A-Car, spends $10 billion a year. That's billion with a B on veterans in their supply chain. So
I've never heard that. That's phenomenal. I'm so glad you said that, because I was under the false impression that the best or biggest, really the biggest government contracting opportunities were the biggest. I had no idea that private contracting was even that much bigger.
And a lot of these private companies now have the challenge of wanting to work with more veteran companies and not being able to find them because veterans don't know what's out there. Walmart last year spent $950 million on veteran contracts. They want to spend more. They're trying to find more veterans to do business with. And JP Morgan Chase is in the same thing. They were just challenged to, expand their percentage of veteran contracts. And vets often think that, we need to be big. And you do need to be a certain size to do Fortune 500 contracts. But just the other day, La Quinta, the hotel brand, reached out to me and said, we want veteran landscapers for all our hotels.
Wow.
And that's their challenge. I mean, but that's huge. That's a huge opportunity for a landscaper in the area of a La Quinta to take on, because just think about how you can grow that business. And La Quinta, shout out to them, actually changed their payment terms. So they pay veteran-owned businesses within 15 days of service. So it's,
kidding.
These companies are trying to figure out, and they're trying to figure out how to do well by doing good. And they're trying to figure out how to take that on and work with veterans. And they have deep pockets. So think private. It's always a good one. And I'll step off my soapbox and pass it over to Rosie.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, how do I follow that?
No pressure.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? That says it all right there. No, absolutely. I think, and this is the misconception, is that although, and I won't diss government, I think there's tremendous opportunity in federal government. Private companies has really stepped up, especially in this last few years. It's not just in the entrepreneurship and employment. I think there was a realization when unemployment, for example, was really high 5-6 years ago, to really do more and do bigger and do greater. So that thank you to private companies who's really stepped it up, who's offered these tremendous amount of opportunities for veteran-owned businesses.
The private companies that are doing this, unlike the companies that are involved in the government contracting, where you got to have a 3% holdback for veteran, disabled, all the categories that are out there. It's required by law for on the government side for it to be done. But the private companies are doing it for all the right reasons. They're doing it not only because it's the patriotic thing to do. It's the right thing to do. They want to help veterans, but really, one of their main motivations is they've discovered that veteran-owned companies do really good work, and so they want to work with them for the best reason, and that's because it's good business.
Right.
And I mean, that goes farther than anything else. I mean, you can be charitable and try to do the right thing, but there's only, it's only going to get you so far. But the fact that veteran-owned companies, it's good business to do business with veterans is the best thing overall.
That's what they say. They're doing well by doing good. So I think that, a big thing there is, these companies, they're not even getting tax breaks. Like they're also trying to figure out, they want to contract with the best companies and the veterans' integrity and a veteran's family integrity and their follow through is something that's very important to them. So I think that, that's why these companies have realized that, hiring, like we did a really good job when we hire veterans, like that's a good hire. And if that works in hiring, that's probably going to work in contracting. And then, come to find it's true. So, we can talk, like you said, about charity and things like that, but it's not charity. It's, these people need to make the best business decision. And for them, a lot of times the best business decision is better. So that's exactly
absolutely
what they're going for.
Well, Misty, Rosie, unfortunately, we're out of time. I do want to give you the last word. If you have one more message you want to put out there to the listeners, feel free. I would like you to also throw in, if there's one website link you could give us to start searching for stuff, which website would that be?
If you go to just ivmf.syr.edu, that's where you're going to find the whole deal, where I have all of our programs, all of our research, everything like that. And what I would say to any veteran is just start. So I think a lot of times people get into the analysis paralysis. I don't know where to start. I don't know what the best first step is. And just take a step. Go to a program, go to a networking event, go to the website, put in an info request on things, and just start there. And a kind of a tribe will build around to make sure that, that accountability and that forward movement keeps going, is what I would say.
All right. Well, thanks, Misty and Rosie, for being here and telling us all about IVMF and the phenomenal programs that are out there. So, if anybody is planning to go to any kind of entrepreneurial related program, wherever that may be, it's a very good chance it's somehow related or interconnected with IVMF, because you guys are doing a lot of coordinating and networking with all the great programs that are going on out there. So phenomenal resource, great programs. There's been several people, if you've been a longtime listener to the show, there's been many people that I've interviewed that have gone through one of these programs that we've talked about today. So it's all out there for the taking. And I don't think you ever mentioned this explicitly, but most of those programs we're talking about are actually free to the veterans and their family members too, right?
Yep. They're all free. So even that EBV program will pay for you to fly to one of those universities and put you up in a hotel for a week and all the food and everything. So everything that we run is free. So if you're interested, there's that. And if you're interested in helping support veterans go through those programs, always interested in that as well.
All right. Well, you can't beat free 99. Best price ever. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here and throwing all that information to us. It's been great, and look forward to hearing more about IVMF and the other programs and everybody, all these folks, phenomenal military experience, and they've all made us proud with their service to the country. Now it's time for them to get out and make us proud as entrepreneurs. All right. We're out. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.